which has been renamed, I guess, VidiPath. Our speaker today is Richard Bardini. He is a DLNA ambassador, and more importantly, he just became a grandfather this morning. So, congratulate him. And it's nice to see that he has his priorities straight. LHG first, and then other trivial matters second. So Richard, take it away.
Okay. Well, welcome. I hope you're enjoying your conference. So I'm Rich Bardini. I've been involved with DLNA for many years. Currently, I work at Intel and in their standards group. So I was asked if I could do this VidiPath, or AKA CVP2 presentation to you. And I suppose most of you, if you're here, have heard of CVP2. VidiPath is just the branding that they have decided to use that was kind of between service providers and consumer electronics companies. So we'll go more a little into that. That was announced about a couple of days ago. So just a little bit background real quickly on DLNA. The DLNA leadership is comprised of a board of directors and promoter members. So I won't go in there, but you can see it's, a lot of relatively large companies in the board of directors, and then some others in the promoter level. And as you can see, that the breadth of companies, there's consumer electronic companies to mobile to service providers and to semiconductor companies. DLNA has been around for quite some time, at least 10 plus years. Over this time, with the existing DLNA guidelines before the launch of CVP2 or VidiPath, these are the types certified devices in device classes from televisions to mobile devices, tablets, and so forth. And this gives you kind of our current count of certified products or certified device models. In terms of actual products, currently there's over 3 billion in the market, and supposedly it's projected by 2018 to grow to 7.32 billion. So DLNA had its core guidelines, which was mainly just to share personal content. What VidiPath does is allows us to share subscription TV content. Initially, the launch will be primarily with cable providers in the US. Since they had kind of a FCC mandate to get their act together. So they've been very active in getting this going in DLNA, and we're set to launch in September of this month. I think it'll launch at the end of the month. And so VidiPath will be the consumer-facing name on consumer electronic devices that adhere to these new guidelines within DLNA. Currently, subscription TV is pretty much a one set-top box type thing to each of your devices. And other devices in your home, other TVs or your personal computer, tablets, or phone really cannot share in that content with your paid TV services. So with VidiPath, what it will do is allow basically a single point of access, like service provider gateway, and then from that service provider gateway will allow using the DLNA VidiPath technology to actually allow subscription TV services to go out to your various devices in your home, assuming they're VidiPath certified. So the primary things that this allows is it allows consumers to access the full range of service provider content from multiple devices in their home. It will eliminate the hassle of additional boxes and cables, especially if you're using, in the case of cable, if you're using like a MoCA, a wired connectivity, or wireless Wi-Fi. It enables a consistent user-provider user experience, and we'll get into that a little bit. It's based on HTML5 technology. And VidiPath will help consumers purchase by looking for devices that have the VidiPath branding on their products to know that it will work with service providers' subscription services. And then also, VidiPath clients will still work with the existing DLNA ecosystem of personal content, so that isn't lost because of this new feature. And then in addition, we're introducing some, I would say, rudimentary low power to allow devices to advertise what type of low power capabilities that they do have, and that advertise it to the clients, so the clients will know what to do in certain situations, because there's different technologies of how people want to manage power on their devices. So instead of prescribing a certain technology, DLNA has elected to allow devices to advertise on their interfaces what kind of power saving features they support. From a service provider benefit, it preserves the service provider's content rights through protected streaming, and the technology that's used within the home is using DTCP/IP, and there's also an authentication that allows service providers to check that the client is actually VidiPath certified. It also reduces a service provider's capital expenditure by enabling more headless gateways and reducing the number of set-top boxes in the home. And it enables a consistent service provider user interface across all devices. And this is because of HTML5 technology. And it allows the service providers to build a single UI that will work on multiple platforms, so it helps to lower the cost instead of having to port a given service provider UI on different type of platforms. It also will allow remote diagnostics, so we have some rudimentary remote diagnostics features in the first release that will allow service providers to optimize the user experience if need be. And again, the logo-lean will allow, give the consumer the ability to know that their devices will be able to work with the service provider content. And then for CE manufacturers, the benefits are it gives CE devices access to a full range of subscriber HD programs, movies, DVR content, channel guide, and other premium features. Utilizes DLNA's formal tests suite and certification program to ensure interoperability amongst devices and also with service providers' content. Leveraging existing DLNA implementations with additional enhancements. Have a common profile, maximizes the need to support individual service provider applications. And again, the VidiPath logo will provide manufacturers a way to say that their products are compliant and we'll work with a subscription TV service. So the primary contributors have been heavily by some of the companies that are here mentioned. As you can see, it's very initially heavily weighted by cable companies in the US and Sony and Samsung as from a TV manufacturer point of view, and Broadcom has been very active because of their presence in the set-top box business. Even though the initial launch is heavily weighted to cable companies, there has been other companies, telcos, and also European service providers that have been interested, but I think they're kind of standing back to see how well this works with the cable rollout to make sure if they're ready to jump in. So the main features of VidiPath, in addition to what's already on top of DLNA, is the main part is HTML5 remote user interface, and this also will include mapping for TV services, closed caption, second audio program, etc. That's signaling in the MPEG-2 transport stream that is used by service providers in the United States for their broadcast of content to the home. With the HTML5 RUI technology, this way it allows the service provider to write their presentation or UI in a generic fashion that they should be able to use that same application on various platforms because of the HTML5 RUI. The main thing is DTCP/IP link protection to protect the content flowing over the home network. So when it comes into the home from the service provider head in, it can be distributed to devices securely using DTCP/IP technology. Actually, this feature has actually been in DLNA for quite some time, but it's being mandated and used extensively for the VidiPath deployment. The other thing I mentioned that network devices can advertise what their power state is and what functionality they can do to save power. The MPEG-2 and AVC video and MPEG-2 transport streams and MP4 containers are supported media format profiles, which are consistent to what in this case, the U.S. broadcast company or U.S. cable providers and telcos are using. We do have an equivalent set of formats for the European providers, but we haven't rolled out the certification program for the European providers at this time. And then the other feature that's in VidiPath is to have HTTP adaptive delivery that's based on the MPEG dash specification. And then, as I mentioned earlier, authentication. So it can be used by the service providers to authenticate client devices that they are actually VidiPath certified. And I'll go more into that a little bit later. What we've done in DLNA is actually use the existing DTCP/IP link protection certificates with an additional bit in it that allows service providers to authenticate, to use that as the authentication method. And this was primarily done to lower costs on CE devices, since they already have to have DTCP/IP device certificates. They don't need to buy install an extra set of certificates. So this is a diagram that just kind of shows if you have a VidiPath server, which would be like a cable set-top box or gateway, and then a VidiPath client would be something like a television, laptop, phone, tablet. We'll go into details a lot of these individual components, but this is just an overview slide. So the first feature, as I mentioned before, is the remote user interface. It's the service provider interface that's put onto CE devices. So as you can see in this animation, it allows the service provider to reflect their UI on any VidiPath device, and then that device can be used to select and control and select content. And it allows them to do this to any device that's VidiPath certified in the home. So I think I've kind of summarized what at the high level already, but I'll just kind of read what's here. Is it enables service providers to render their UIs, i.e. program, on VidiPath clients. HTML5 RUI profile for DLNA clients, conformant to commercial browser implementations. HTML5 provides a consistent user experience. HTML5 allows a single unified user interface adapted to screen resolution. Discovery is based on the UPnP remote user interface specification. So that's the underlying technology to discover UIs and then to load them up on your, to get them displayed on your client devices. Pixel accurate relies on Canvas, a HTML5 tag for dynamic subscriptable rendering in 2D shapes and bitmap images. Supports the same mandatory trick modes and media format profiles that are currently required for DLNA baseline devices for personal content. And it supports presentation of MSO regulatory services such as closed caption, secondary audio program, and descriptive video services. So this is probably one of the main new features that DLNA has added, which has enabled VidiPath, and so this is probably I would say the most major feature of the VidiPath program. The other one is DTCP/IP protected streaming content. As I said before, this has been in DLNA for quite some time, so this is nothing new, but it's just being realized or used by service providers to allow them to stream content in the home. So in terms of DTCP/IP, it's automatically negotiated between a DLNA certified protected streaming product and has been designed to protect content as it moves across the local home network. Legal protections provided by chain of licensing, where DTCP/IP license mandates robustness, i.e. tamper-resistant enclosures, no clear text on user-accessible buses, buried traces, and things of that nature. Licensing also perpetuates protection on all home network devices and links together a chain of protective technologies that permit a variety of marketplace technologies that support current and future content delivery business models. It utilizes well-known cryptographic algorithms and provides the following functionality: authenticated key exchange, manual authentication using public key crypto, advanced encryption, standard, copy control information. You can convey in the stream prefer that it's the copy never, copy once, or whatever. Revocation, so if a device for some reason has been compromised, there's a mechanism to revoke the certificate on that one device or group of devices. And it also has strong license provisions. The motion picture studio support with 3 studios as content participants and others relying on DTLA's IP statement. The other new feature that's in VidiPath is diagnostics, as I mentioned earlier. It allows from a service provider's gateway or set-top box to query client devices if their connection is okay and report that status back at a high level. The underlying technologies are, one, it's optional if the lower levels support IEEE 1905, that it will use some of these link metrics and other things that are specified in 1905 to diagnose any connectivity issues. At the layer 3, the diagnostics level utilizes UPnP device management technology. And right now, the basic tools, even though UPnP device management has a wide range of things that it can diagnose, right at the moment, we're just doing simple connection issue things like ping, trace route, and other. Even though vendors are free to add other features, they're just not mandated in the current release. So from a diagnostic capabilities and roles, you have a diagnostic endpoint, and this has the a role of offering diagnostic services and responding to diagnostics action requests. So this diagnostic endpoint would be hosted on your client VidiPath device, like a TV or laptop or tablet or phone. Diagnostic controller, which would be hosted most likely on a service provider's set-top box or gateway, has the role of providing a diagnostic application and issuing action and requests against those endpoints. So this is just kind of a summary of the architecture. The solid lines going between the controller and the endpoint shows that the technologies being used are the UPnP device management at the layer 3 level, and if the supporting PHYs support 1905, those features are available also. And the dotted lines are just showing an example of how a service providers can realize that to get the information back up to their head-in. But that's actually out of scope to DLNA, but this is, you know, whatever the service providers, how they want to get that information communicated and packaged up. So the other feature, as I mentioned earlier, is power save, conserving energy. So this again is utilizing UPnP technology to convey this information. The name of the service in UPnP is called Energy Management. And what it does, it allows a device to basically report in its status information of what type of power save mechanism it supports. So if it uses a link-on, if it uses like a wake-on LAN technology, it can convey that. If it uses more of a, lack of a better word, kind of a subscription type model where you kind of give indications or hints to it that you're going to be using this interface and services for a certain period of time. It lets the device, such as the set-top box, to know that there are clients out there that wish to use it, so it can make adjustments of how it would go into power save mode. So I think I just summarized what I just said, summarized in this slide here. And also, it also allows for devices to proxy knowledge of energy management capabilities and modes to other devices. So it does have that capability also. So again, the role is you have a low power controller. That would be, for instance, your TV in this case, or laptop, or phone. It has the role of issuing action requests on the low power endpoint or a low power proxy. And this would be most likely on a set-top box or a gateway device. In this deployment, the low power endpoint has the role of responding to these actions and provide information on network interface mode and access to services based on subscriptions. And a low power proxy, which has a role of tracking availability of network interfaces and providing the information to low power controllers on behalf of a low power endpoint. But that is an optional feature in DLNA. So this is just a pictorial diagram that kind of shows the main components, and this shows an example with a wake-on LAN or pattern. We call it a wake-on pattern signaler. So the next feature that DLNA has added that's part of the VidiPath program is HTTP adaptive delivery. And this will allow service providers that wish to use that technology in terms of streaming their programs. And if you're not familiar with adaptive the term is usually commonly used as adaptive streaming. DLNA calls it adaptive delivery, but it's the same. So it's just a way of giving a manifest file to a client, and the client, based on its algorithms and bandwidth, it can adjust the quality based on what's in the manifest file, so it can give a seamless display of content. So the Impact Dash technology which DLNA utilizes, it's extensibility of the HTTP streaming to deliver adaptive and dynamic media content, requesting different representations of the same content item from a server. The client to varying access, clients adapt to varying access and streaming channel conditions to dynamically select suitable representation for the best viewing experience. And based on MPEG Dash, as I said before, it uses the ISO Live profile, the ISO On Demand, and the MPEG-2 TS Simple profile. So this maps to some of the common Dash manifest formats that are used in the marketplace at this time. And other organizations adopting MPEG Dash are 3GPP, QIPF, HBP-TV, DECE, and others, and W3C. In the MPEG Dash, we've added media format profiles that are conformant to in this case, to the U.S. cable broadcasters. And so this is just a list of those. And then also, it will also be able to support in the Dash manifest DTP/IP link protection. So this is just kind of a very simplistic diagram. Oops, went the wrong way. So this is just a diagram that kind of shows the roles and the technologies that are used in the client and the server devices. So one of the main things that was advocated by service providers is some form of authentication, because they didn't want their TV services to go to just any device in the home. They wanted to make sure that the device was DLNA certified and met all the criteria that's described in the DLNA guidelines. And so DLNA added this, and as I said before, they adapted, at least for the client authentication, they adapted the existing DTP/IP device certificates to save costs for CE manufacturers by enabling a bit or something in the device certificate that will allow them to authenticate. So what it is in their HTML5 browser, clients will implement HTTPS to exchange the DTP/IP VDPath certificates using supplemental data. It also mentions here in the slide X.509 certificates. This can be used in a bidirectional way. It's not required, but clients can also authenticate service providers to make sure that the service provider is what they say they are, so you're not getting content. So a client can also can check the credentials of X509 to make sure that it is a trusted CVP2 or VDPath service provider. And that is done using, it can be used using either of those two methods, but typically I think it'll be just X509 certificates that they use. So the VDPath client will use the CVP DTP VDPath certificate. Same certificate, as I said, that is used for link protection. So I think I've summarized pretty much everything here. The second bullet kind of describes a little bit the details of how the service provider would authenticate the device using the supplemental data in TLS. And there's an RFC, pending RFC, that describes the details of this operation. I think it's on track to be an RFC. It's just kind of in the editor's queue right at the moment. So this is just diagram kind of showing what I just described verbally a few minutes ago. And this is where the client can authenticate the server. So this is showing an example of that using the X509 certificate. So authentication, DLNA's certification requirements. A VDPath device is submitted for DLNA certification, shall include production DTP/IP VDPath certificates. And the same certificate and key is used for the link, as I said, for the link protection capability. And then dealer name members request VDPath production certificate from DTLA, which is the organization that administers DTCP prior to certification testing. Actually, I think there's going to be a slight adjustment to what's here. I think based on an updated adopter agreement, DTLA will allow devices to put in DLNA VDPath certificates, even though they're not certified yet, and just using just DTCP link protection only. And their adopter agreement will preclude them from doing the authentication process until they get DLNA certified. So it's going to be a legal document that will bind that. So this is just kind of showing the authentication architecture with the certificates. So the timeline, the guidelines for VDPath guidelines, which was called CVP2, was released to the public in March. During this time, DLNA has been working on getting their certification program launched based on those guidelines. And they plan to launch the certification in September this month. I think in the next week or two, and then hopefully there'll be products available in the marketplace in December using this technology. Just one thing I'd like to add is being a DLNA member, you have access to all their test tools, certification tools, to test your implementations. Even if you don't initially get them certified, you are able to use those tools to check the functionality of your system, of your device, and also it will do, you have access to the certification process and tests. And the test plan to know what it will take to get your devices certified. So is there any questions? Yes. What is the relationship between DLNA and DLNA? In order for this to be reach the security required to high quality content at home, DLNA, are they the only governing body, or? They're the only governing. You as an adopt, they call it an adopter. If you're an adopter of I'm sorry? Oh, about here you go. I'm not too sure how this turns on.
So the question was, in order to have a device certified for the movement of high quality content in the home, you mentioned DTLA, DTCP, and I was just wondering if there were other protocols or agencies or standards that DLNA would support as well. Is it exclusive to DTLA?
For VDPath, it's exclusively DTCP for the protected content, and the DLNA is not involved in that relationship, or the adoption of that technology is between DTLA and the manufacturer. They're the ones that they sign the agreements between each other. So DLNA by itself is not responsible for that.
And geographically, is DLNA used all around the world, or is it focused primarily in the U.S., or how do you see it?
What I'm going to call personal content DLNA is used throughout the world: Europe, Japan, Korea. Pretty much nowadays, all your television sets, at least for the last couple of years, when they say smart TV, does have DLNA technology. So does Microsoft Windows. They even though they don't exactly say DLNA, but they're like media player, media server. It's all based on DLNA technology with extensions. That's the vanilla, and VidiPath is obviously a new deployment, so we have no experience at this time, but initially it'll be just launched in the United States.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. Appreciate it. Any other questions? We'll let you...
Grandson.
So we'll let you enjoy your new grandson.
Thank you.
Thank you.